Edward Sassoon was a British poet, writer, and soldier during the 18 and 1900s. In May 1915, Sassoon was commissioned into the Royal Welsh Fusiliers, a line of infantry of the British Army that was part of the Prince of Wales Division. Many were impressed with his bravery in the front line and was given the name Mad Jack because of many of his suicidal exploits. In many of Sassoon's poems, he talks about the war, the effects of the war, and the glorification it gets. I chose this poem because of the irony and overall tone Sassoon used in the poem. In the first line, the bishop talks about the war, and the men who fought in the war would be different when they come back home. He speaks confidently about the subject, but ironically, he doesn't understand what it truly feels like to be on the front lines fighting for your life. The bishop also calls them boys instead of men or soldiers, almost as if he's patronizing them because he doesn't understand or think that what they do is important, and he just sees the glorification war truly gets. In the third line, in the first stanza, the line "in a just cause" is used to emphasize why the bishop is saying it's just or right for the men to fight in the war. This ties into the normalization and glorification Sassoon points out in all his poems about the war. This fourth line is important to the poem because the bishop is comparing the soldiers to God. The line states, "On Antichrist, their comrades' blood has bought. God died for the sins of others so they can have an eternal life." And the bishop saying that the soldiers dying is giving their country eternal life and it's going to keep them protected. In the last line, in the first stanza, the bishop talks about how the soldiers were face to face with death. Upon further research, this line connects to Corinthians 13:12. Now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. This means that we're imperfect, but we become enlightened when we meet God. This embodies the bishop because of how he glorifies the war and saying it's just for the men to fight in the war. In the first line, in the second stanza, we see how they're being called boys again. The bishop still doesn't see them as men, even when the line, "We're none of us the same," is a declaration of how the war has changed the men. The war is what makes them men because of what they experience and what they have to go through throughout the years of fighting. The war causes mental illness and causes shell shock, and Sassoon makes it relevant and clear throughout his poems the effect war has on men, and he himself and his comrades have received shell shock throughout the years of fighting in the war. The speaker then goes on to make a list of men and injuries they received from the war. This is brought up to show that war has physical effects and that these men were brothers, sons, and husbands, and not just anonymous individuals. In the second to last line, in the second stanza, the speaker talks about how the war left the men. They were never the same after fighting. They grew depressed, they developed shell shock, or any other mental illness. In 1917, Sassoon issued a statement of protest against the continuation of war. He hoped to stop development of mental illness and shell shock, and hoped to bring more families together and not have them separated from war. The ways of God are strange is a connection to God works in mysterious ways. He's looked at as someone who will bring positivity and lead you in the right direction in life. But with these soldiers, they don't get that. They get death and negativity every day. Most of the soldiers don't end up believing in anything religious because of the situations they're in and what they end up getting out of their life.